Unit 1, here we go. We are going to be talking about equations and linear functions and all that kind of stuff, solving equations and solving inequalities. We're going to start out by talking about expressions. We're going to use some substitution property today and all of those things. We're really going to hit three examples, and then we're going to be done with this lesson. Should theoretically be a review. That's the nice thing about Algebra 2. One of the reasons why Algebra 2 is often kind of almost a little bit easier than Algebra 1 is there's a lot of stuff where we're doing Algebra 1 topics and just reviewing stuff and diving a little bit deeper or learning some shortcuts or all of those kind of things. So let's hit some of these examples and show you what I'm talking about. So we're going to do 3 problems in this particular lesson. We're going to start with this one right here. Evaluate m plus the quantity p minus 1 quantity squared if m equals 3 and p equals -4. So this is a really simple, straightforward substitution property problem, right? All we're going to do is we're going to take and we're going to first grab the right tool and a layer to write with. There we go. Now we're cooking with Crisco. I know, unhealthy, but whatever. We're going to take and we're going to substitute these guys in for these variables, right? That's all we're going to do. You've probably seen this before. If not, now, especially if you've not been in one of my classes before, and kind of, when we do these substitution substitution property problems, say that 10 times fast. Let me know in the comments how that worked out for you. Probably better than me because I'm getting probably older than you. But what I like to do first, and what I teach you to do first, is to start by rewriting this equation, or this, it's not an equation, there's no equals, but this expression with parentheses everywhere there's a variable. That way we keep, and the reason why we do that, so where the m is, we put a variable. The reason why we do that is because it helps keep us neat and organized and keeps us understanding what we need to do. And most importantly, on all of these kind of problems, you've probably heard me say it before if you've been in any of my classes or even if you just watched the Unit 0 stuff, for this class, then you know that negatives are where we make mistakes. And one of the easiest, bestest way, no matter who you are, no matter what your needs are and all your things, one of the easiest ways to keep up with those negatives is to make sure you keep your work really neat and you line it up and you bring it down and you write those negatives. And so that's why we rewrite this with parentheses. It looks a little wild, but it helps keep us organized. So what we're going to do is we're going to take and right here where we've replaced this parentheses for the m, we're going to put this variable. We're going to put a 3 right here. Right? And for where the p is, we're going to put a 4. Now, and the reason, again, I'll highlight even more why we put these parentheses, and mostly I'm highlighting especially where we put these parentheses and all of that stuff, because I want you to make sure that you understand. I got excited about talking about negatives and whatever else. I forgot that there was a negative. So let's pretend like this problem was this instead, right? And we had a negative here. If you didn't have the parentheses, it would be easy to forget to put that negative where it went, right? And so negatives, these things that I teach you to do that sound like extra stuff, extra writing, I promise they're for a reason. And so I really strongly encourage you to use what I teach you because they're all there for a reason. So we need to simplify this down. This is a regular order of operations. We're going to deal with what's inside the parentheses first. So we're going to bring that 3 down. There's nothing outside the parentheses on this one. So on this first set of parentheses here, we can go ahead and drop them now at this point because they're not adding anything on this next line. So we're going to bring down our plus. Make sure you bring down everything. It takes less than a second. It takes basically 0. Oh, graphite, do it, please. It's going to save your life, or at least make less math mistakes anyway. -4 plus -1 is -5. We got to make sure and bring that parentheses and the squared down. So we dealt with what's inside the parentheses. We're going to deal with the exponents next. Now we have a negative squared. Whenever we square a negative, remember that we get a positive because a negative times a negative is a positive. So this turns into positive 25. So we bring down our 3 plus 25. 3 plus 25 is, of course, 28. No big deal. So there we go. That's the end of that example. Let's look at another one. Okay. There we are. So we're going to do another problem that's similar, but that has some things that are a little bit different in it. All right, so we have evaluate a minus b cubed when, well, I didn't finish reading it. A minus b cubed times the quantity a minus b when a equals negative 7 and b equals 5.2. So step 1 is write this down with parentheses where the variables are, right? So we're going to put parentheses for the a minus parentheses squared parentheses minus parentheses, right? Now we're going to take and we're going to plug in for a. Everywhere there's an a. So there's an a right here and there's an a right here. So to line that up, it's this one and that one, right? So we're going to put negative 7 in there. Negative 7 there and negative 7 there. Now for the b, everywhere where there's a b, we're going to plug in 5.2. 5.2. 5.2. There we go. Now, there's a lot of different things going on here. First of all, I didn't copy that down right. You gotta, that's why the neater it is, the easier it is to see those little mistakes. See, even I make them. This keeping things neat and organized like this is a huge way to prevent those mistakes compounding. So anyway, the only thing that is cubed is this b, right? So it's only this 5.2, and it's not the negative. Now, with a cubed, it actually doesn't matter because odd powers, you still end up with a negative, but just logging some of those ideas in your brain, that only the 5.2 is cubed, not the negative, right? So if it was squared, this whole thing would still turn out negative in the end because this negative is outside the parentheses. See how these parentheses help and they matter and all of those things, right? I know I'm making that point hard, right? Making it very hard. There's nothing out, this parentheses, there's nothing outside of it over here, right? So we can just drop them. And we've got negative 7. And then minus, and then 5.2 cubed. That one's a little tricky. You may want to pull out your calculator for that one. I'll do the same. Now, on most calculators, when you do exponents in there, it's a good idea to use parentheses. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to hit my parentheses button right here, and I'm going to put 5.2. And then we got to go outside of the parentheses, and I'm going to cube it on this. Now, your calculator is going to be different. I've said before, I don't know if I've even said in this course, it all sorts to run together. I do so many of these videos right now, but if you need help understanding how to do something specific like a fraction button or exponent button or whatever, let me know down in the comments for your specific calculator, because I own quite a few different, especially scientific calculators, and it will take me a real short amount of time to make a quick video for your specific calculator. So if you need that, let me know in the comments, all right? So for this one, we're going to hit this exponent button. Yours is probably something like this, or the little caret symbol, which looks like, right? Something like that, right? So for this one, it's x to the y, right? And then so up in the top, we're going to hit cubed, and we're going to hit enter, and we get 140.608. Okay. 140 point, what was it? 608 thousandths. 608. Negative 7 minus 52 is negative. What is that? 12.2. Okay. Nice thing when you're using a multi-line calculator, whether it's something like this HP, or whether it's something like the TI-30X or the TI-34X or the various Casio 2-line calculators and all those things, is we keep our previous number, and they all of them have a button somewhere. A lot of times it's on the bottom. This one happens to be on the bottom where you're looking for that little A and S, or sometimes written all the way out, answer, that lets us use this last thing as a variable. So what I can do is I can take, and now we got to make sure and use our brain with the signs, right? Because this is actually negative 140.608. So I need to remember that. And a negative times a negative is going to be positive. So I need to make sure and remember and use my head before I punch the buttons, right? That's important. But I can just hit that. And you also, if I just hit one of these buttons right now, it's going to automatically put that answer. So if I hit times, see, it automatically punches that ANS. And it's going to do the same thing on your calculator as long as you have pretty much any multi-line calculator, any of the ones that I recommend. It's going to do that, and it's going to put this, and that's going to be whatever this previous number was, which is a great little shortcut, right? And so we're going to multiply it times 12. I'm not even going to worry about putting the signs in there, and just remember, I'm just going to remember with my rules that my answer is going to be positive. That's a good rule of thumb way to handle doing that. 12.2, enter. So I get 1,715. 1,715 point. Now remember it's positive, so I'm just going to put a plus. I'm also going to go ahead and bring this down while remembering, then go back to my calculator. 4176. 4176. So I've got a positive here. So these two things are different signs, so I'm going to subtract. That I could probably actually, that we can do probably in our head without stressing much about it, because 15 minus 7 is 8, right? So our answer to this problem is going to be positive 1,708.4176. Easy peasy. We're going to do one more with some kind of fraction-y stuff going on in here. So let's take these off the screen. We are going to pull that up. Give me somewhere to write. Evaluate that mess. I'll let you read it. When x equals 5, y equals -3, and z equals -4. We've got 3 variables instead of just the 2 this time, but it's not any more difficult. We start the exact same way by writing parentheses everywhere there's a variable. So x squared minus 3 times squared. Only this last one is squared. That's important. It's not this, right? Then they would all be squared. It's just this last one. That's important to know where those exponents are. You need to have those kind of ideas locked in our head. All over 2 times plus 8 times, there's not 3 of them. That's all right. So I'm going to do the x's with 5. Okay, there's 3 x's there, and there. So I'm going to put a 5 right here and right here. You see, we're just matching it up, lining it up. And it's really as easy as that on these problems. If you've never taken one of my classes before, some of the way I do this might be a little bit new to you, but I do it just to keep things organized. Now, if you're not in one of my classes, I do highly recommend using different colors when you do this. That way it's easy to match up what you've done and how you've done these things. This makes all of these little tricks and tips are there to help you. If you happen to have like dyslexia or severe ADHD or even some learning disabilities or any of those things, these are not the end all be all, but these strategies will help with that, as well as just general education students. These strategies are good for everyone. So there we go. So we got our y's plugged in, and then let's see if we can find our x's. No, I already did our x's. There's 2 z's. This one and that one. 2 yellows, 2 parentheses. Works out really well. Let's put, what is it, -4? Yes. I'm going to put a -4 right there, -4 right there. Easy peasy. All right. Now, all we have to do is walk down one step at a time and take care of these things. So what we're going to do first, let's go ahead and take care of these squares, these exponents. So I'm going to use, if you've never seen this before, I can't remember where I've done this in this class before. Again, it all kind of starts to run together. This means we're going to move from one step to the other step. I do it with an arrow so it doesn't look like a regular equals. Makes it a little different. Something my math teacher used to do in high school, something I've picked up. So 5 squared is 25. minus 3, which we can do a better job drawing that 3, can't we? 3 times 5 times negative 3, and negative squared, remember, is positive because a negative times a negative positive. So negative 4 squared is positive 16. Over, in the denominator, there's no exponent. So in the denominator, let's go ahead and do some of these multiplication things. I'm gonna kind of highlight in pink what I actually did. So I'm gonna take care of these multiplication things here. All right, so 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. 8 times 5 is 40, times negative 4 is negative 160. 160. Easy peasy, right? No big deal. All right, now we got this big old multiplication. Now that one's big and kind of ugly, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pull up my calculator again, and I'm gonna do that one on there. So, and I'm going to keep my negatives. I'm going to go ahead and actually put negatives. Very often when I'm using the calculator, I alluded to this earlier. Very often in the calculator, when I push stuff in the calculator, I don't even worry about changing the negatives and all of those things. Because it makes me actually think about, okay, should this answer be positive or negative? I really do encourage you to do the same thing. But I'm going to go ahead and just to show that you can do it this way, I'm going to actually put the negatives in. So I'm going to put negative 3 times 5 times negative 3 times 16. Now you'll notice on this calculator, and it's the exact same on your calculator. Now the button may look different, it may be in a different place, but it's almost certainly a negative button that is separate from the minus button. They're pretty much always that way. If you're getting weird syntax errors, that may be something that you're doing wrong. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter right there. We get 720. All right, so we've got, and it's positive because we've got 2 negatives. Even number of negatives ends up positive, right? So 25 plus 720 over in the denominator. We'll go ahead and do this in the denominator. The signs are the same, so we add and keep the sign. So it's negative 166. 25 plus 720 is 745. That's over negative 166. So we can do 745 divided by negative 166 equals, it's going to be a decimal, right? We can convert that to a fraction. You see that it's the same thing, which tells us that that fraction doesn't actually reduce, right? So we could actually just circle this right here. Circle this right here. We could also get the decimal equivalent, which was, go back to that one, negative 4.49. Approximately equal to negative 4.49. So this is as good a place as any to point this out. 98.5% of the time in this class, we want to just keep whatever the most exact answer is, which would be this one, not this one. Okay. Now that we're moving into Algebra 2, and then especially when we move into pre-calculus next year, we are looking for the exact answer. This is a math class, not a science class. Now, if we're doing, I want to note this, if we're doing an application problem, a word problem, it's very possible that we may want to actually get the decimal equivalent. Because in science, we want to get that decimal equivalent. We want a usable number. But in math, we want to keep our answers as exact as they possibly can be. And so this, actually, in this Algebra 2 class, this is a better answer. Now, when we do have fractions, we do want to reduce them if possible. But again, our calculator is telling us that this can't be reduced. This is an ugly number. We could try to reduce that on our own, but it would take a lot longer. So it's nice to be able to just use the calculator to tell that for us. And the reason I know that is because see, these numbers are the same. If they were smaller, then it was reduced, and it did the reducing for me. And so that is it for this lesson. We'll see you in lesson 2. Y'all have a great day. If you're one of my students, I'll see you in class. Do your homework, all those things. If you're not one of the students, thanks for joining us. Let me know in the comments how else we can help you with all your math and science and homeschooling in general. Bye-bye. Have a great one. Bye-bye.